SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Morning there, Rhino.
Howdy, howdy.
I'm working overtime today, just completed being a guest on the other side of the iconic SuperTalk Hosts desk here in the SuperTalk headquarters studio on the Mary Whedon Show, talking about data centers, and thoroughly enjoyed the discussion. Hopefully we cleared some things, and it wasn't just all about the various objections we hear that have gone viral on social media, but did a little discussion, just provided an overview of what exactly is a data center? Because I think it's one of those things that you sort of kind of know what it is, and that's fine. We don't expect everybody to understand all the intricacies and all the details. But I think it is helpful to know that and to get a better appreciation for, because you see this as well, Rhino. Why do we need these things? And you know what they're doing? Using data centers to ask the question, why do we need them? It's just mind-boggling that there just is such little understanding. You would think at least at a minimum they would understand that. For example, Darren in Jackson says, so the people who protest data centers, how will they react if it were announced, okay, we're shutting down all data centers and their phones and laptops stop working? Precisely. Not only that, Darren, so at every bank, hospital, retail store, restaurant, every government. That may be good, right? But we don't want the U.S. military to be shut down, for example. They've leveraged the power of data centers, cloud services, artificial intelligence extensively in their operations in Venezuela and Iran. That's just one example, but there's no aspect of life that isn't digitized. Can you name one these days, Rhino, that doesn't have a digital component to it anymore?
I was going to say charcoal grilling, but there's the meme of the guy that had to wait to grill because his grill had to update.
Well, and I know that I'm sounding a little fantastic there, but the point is that this is a good thing. It's a good thing that we've innovators, mainly from America, by the way, as evidenced by the fact that stupid France wants to throw more taxes and penalties at American technology companies. And I applaud the president who said, okay, France, the only deadgum thing you got that we primarily import into this country is wine. 100% tariff. Leave our technology companies alone. I've always thought it's resentment. It's jealousy because their dumb economic system, it doesn't inspire. It doesn't produce innovators. I think I got this right. Like, don't they take off the whole month of August or something like that in France?
In France? Yeah, large swaths of the population.
Just take off. And they have crazy laws like no business communications after normal business hours. And, day one when you start working for a company, it's like 3 months of vacation. I might be exaggerating. But they're way more into leisure time and drinking wine and doing nothing than they are producing. And the innovators in this country, they don't have a clock. They don't adhere to a standard 8 to 5 workday. That's not how you create greatness. So they're mad because your lazy butts can't create what we did here in this country. You're happy to use everything we create. Yeah, but you don't create it. And that's what makes this country the most prosperous, the most powerful on the planet. But some of the misinformation going around, I got to at least talk about this one, and I know people are saying, Gerard, we've heard you talk about data centers enough, but I've been talking about it the last hour, so it's kind of fresh on my head. There's this meme going around, social media meme. Rhino says, Amazon says they use 2.5 billion gallons, but they've been called out. It's actually 40 times that. Okay. So according to my math, that's 100 billion gallons. Globally, by the way. So I got curious, started going down the old rabbit hole to try to find out how much water do we consume globally. Pretty easy to find out what we consume in the country because it turns out the United States Geological Survey has been tracking that information for quite some time. I was a little shocked to find the wealth of information. You're shaking your head. You've seen it too, right?
Oh, yeah.
It makes sense that they would do that. It's a precious, necessary resource. It's part of their function as a federal agency. But globally, 946 trillion gallons. Trillion. Amazon, 100 billion. That's 0.01% of total water. And they're freaking out over it. Like, no water's coming out of the faucet because of that 0.01%.
And that's if you buy their nonsense claim that it's 50 times larger.
That's exactly right, which I don't.
Being used.
Right. So, in the 946 does add up because according to the United States Geological Survey, in the United States we consume 81 trillion gallons. Data centers account for 17.5 billion. That is 0.03%. We use more water flushing toilets. And that's not a lie. I'm not exaggerating there. Now, does that mean we need to go crazy and waste water? Of course not. No. And you know this, Rhino, we're headed to a point where we won't even use water to cool data centers. There's new technology being developed because they don't want to use it. They're trying to figure out how to cut costs. Water costs money. And it costs money to include water in the cooling process. There's a big CapEx associated with that.
Yeah, because there's a whole bunch of infrastructure in between the actual computing and the water, because think about it. If you take your laptop into the bath with you, you're not going to have a good time with your laptop.
So the reality is the hyperscalers, they're trying to figure out a way to not use water in the cooling process. It saves them money. So the idiots that say, oh, it's all about money. Yeah, you're right. They're trying to save money by building facilities that don't require water in the cooling process. So you've seen it. There's direct-to-chip cooling. There's cooling inversion systems, all the above, such that we ain't going to need water. This is kind of a short-term thing, but even while it's going on, it is a small, teeny, tiny, infinitesimal fraction of what we consume in the country. So in Mississippi, and this adds up, I would say, Rhino, so the USGA says 81 trillion. They say in Mississippi it's 1.1 trillion. That sounds about right, does it not? So that makes sense given our agricultural industry, which is huge, the biggest in our country. Our state, I should say, and they need water. I get it. And we want them to use water to produce the food and fiber we need for basic human survival. So all that added up to me, 81 trillion, 1.1 in the state of Mississippi. Amazon, by the way, in the state of Mississippi, expected to use, according to their official communication, 250 million gallons. it adds up to about the same, about 0.03%. It's nothing at the end of the day. Now, that doesn't mean, again, be wasteful, go crazy. There's people out there that are saying we're draining the aquifer. The water's not coming from the aquifer. It's coming from the wastewater treatment plant. It's like they think we've got this direct pipe connection to the aquifer that is underneath our ground in the northwest part of our state, the western part of our state, which, of course, is used for agriculture.
Well, your first problem was trying to give them credit for thinking. They don't think anything. They regurgitate everything.
I'll just say this. I'm not trying to dismiss concerns. The concerns are legitimate, and we need to address the concerns, but we got to agree that we will frame the narrative with facts, not internet hyperbole, and especially not the AI-generated memes complaining about data centers that were used to generate the memes. Coming right back in the Element Well studio.
Hello, my name is...
We're rolling. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
Awesome. On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Back with you in the Element Well studio on the subject of France. This is on the C Spire text line. They are too uppity if there's a word if that's a word. Nose is so far up in the air. If it started raining, they drown. Wink, wink. Signed, Bob. Yeah, they've always had kind of a little bit of an elitist air about them. And it's not just them, as you know, Rhino. There are other countries that have sought to impose some sort of taxes or fines or fees on American companies, in particular American technology companies. Just crazy stuff that they want to impose. And the president is he's responding, and I'm with him, on imposing major tariffs on the export that is probably the top import in this country from France. And I think that's a good thing. I really do. So happy about the president taking that on. Something else that was going on, I think it's the UK that I wanted to get to. They are banning social media for everyone under the age of 16. 16.
Well, not all social media.
Okay.
There are some exclusions, including the website full of child predators, Blue Sky.
But TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube out. Banned. Supposed to take place early next year. This just feels like government being a parent here to me. Responsible parents that allow their children to have these electronic devices that connect to the platforms, there are a myriad of tools, security tools, that can be utilized if they wanted to control and limit where they access, where they browse, what content they consume. So I guess I don't get it. Why they're imposing this, but it feels like that UK is being big brother to families here. The president right now is at the G7 summit, and there are news reports about the discussions going on at the summit, given the fact that we have a deal, the president says, with Iran. Vice President J.D. Vance has made it very clear this morning that not a cent of U.S. dollars is going to Iran. We've seen Democrats and others, including Republicans, have squawked, have complained that, we're going to be sending them a bunch of money. The vice president says not true. We're not sending them a dime. Now, the details of this agreement have yet to be released. What the president said in an interview that I caught this morning was that when it is signed, sealed, and delivered, he said he will read it. He will personally read every word. He said word by word so as to avoid any confusion, any misunderstanding, any misquoting, any misrepresentation of what's in the agreement. And he says, and so does the Vice President, J.D. Vance, that Iran only gets benefits if it, quote, transforms. Now, the president has held firm on Iran not obtaining nuclear weapons. He says that they've agreed to forego their nuclear program. I think a lot of people are still a bit skeptical about that, mainly because these people lie. That's the first thing. And secondly, we're just not sure exactly what's in the agreement. I think folks want to see the agreement. Now, the president also said, this agreement, it triggers additional negotiations, some 60 days worth of negotiations around the various terms and conditions of the Memorandum of Understanding that is to be signed by the parties on Friday. And those negotiations over 60 days will include discussion of Iran's nuclear program. Now, my prediction is if the president doesn't get what he wants there, the attacks will resume. I could be wrong. And I'm also concerned that Iran just says, here, Mr. President, here's all of our nuclear material. Now, he said again today that only this country and China have the assets and the know-how to excavate, so the word he used, this nuclear material, which is believed to be stored deep under some mountain somewhere. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, because I've seen a couple different variations on why, but the one that makes the most sense to me is because China and the U.S. are world leaders in remote excavation. Oh,
okay. So that's kind of the unique capabilities the two countries have. Okay. And the president made it clear. Now, he's a construction guy. He knows what he's talking about here. He understands excavation and what's involved there. Spent a career doing that. And that's what he said. So, and I kind of wonder, does that mean that that's how we're going to remove this material, that we're going to go in literally and excavate it? Seems to suggest that we know where it is. It's just a matter of deploying the assets and authorizing the task of extracting and removing that material, what he says the nuclear dust, as he describes it. So we'll see. Now, there are kind of conflicting reports on the opening of the strait. He says it's wide open. Others are saying, no, it's not. It's maybe open on a limited basis. And some of our allies in the region are even suggesting that, and this is at the Group of Seven, the G7 summit. They're saying, it's not totally wide open yet. It's hard to tell. I mean, it really is.
Well, it's also a very sluggish mechanism to get back into motion.
That's true.
Because you can open the strait and cease all hostilities. Then you've got to get Lloyd's of London to say, okay, we agree that hostilities have ceased. Now we will start insuring at a non-wartime price. Then they start signing those. Then they get the go-ahead. It's going to take a while from the end of hostilities, which there's still no 100% guarantee that's occurred.
Yeah. So, you wouldn't expect that, okay, boom, everything just back to normal. I don't think that's going to be the case. And that's proven to be exactly where we are. But I think we'll get there. With respect to crude oil, it's got a 7 handle in front of us now, down $3.74, $77. So it broke through the $80 a barrel threshold. That's good news for your gas prices. The Dow likes it. It's up today. The NASDAQ is down. And the 10-year Treasury is also down. as well to 4.48. Again, that's good news because that is the benchmark that is used to determine interest rates on housing, automobiles, long-term financing, and so forth. So all good news there with respect to the economy. Honestly, I just feel like that if we can get this thing behind us, get the strait totally reopened, start to see oil recede to close to or around the level it was when the attacks were launched, which was in the $60 a barrel range. So we got another $17 to go. We get to that point, get supplies replenished, because we're now running low on inventory, not just in the strategic reserve where we have depleted more of it to try to offset the spike in the price of oil driven by the shortage of the oil that flows through the strait there and the loss of that supply. But the various oil producers and distributors across the country that store oil and gas, refined products, they've had to dip into those reserves. And so we're kind of at a scary point right now, lowest we've had in years in terms of our reserves. So hopefully that gets built back up and we get back to growing our economy with all this fantastic technology that is, honestly, it's driving our GDP. It's driving job growth as well. A third of the construction workers in this country are involved some way, somehow, in the build-out of our digital economy. And that's good news. And it's competitive for those jobs. And as I should say, it's competitive for those who are hiring those people, and that's driving up wages. Oh, that's a good thing. We're seeing an incredible increase in the rates and compensation being paid to all sorts of construction workers. Electricians in particular are seeing salaries they've never seen before and hourly rates. That's just fantastic in my view. So we'll get back to business, and I think this economy will absolutely soar to the stratosphere. I honestly do believe that. And I think the productivity gains from all this new technology, productivity, the only way to produce wealth. When you get more output per man hour, that's how you produce more wealth, and we're well on our way. Coming right back, we got Representative Rob Roberson at 11:05. Stay with us.
From the Seabrook.com in the state.
Adoring fans. It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Toto bumping us into this segment. Appreciate that, Rhino. Yep, we got Representative Rob Roberson on at 11:05. We're going to get his thoughts on the School District Consolidation Committee. They've been meeting, of course, in the period between legislative sessions. This is the result of the 6 committees Speaker of the House Jason White commissioned after the session to go study various issues of pertinence in the state, school district consolidation being one of them. So looking forward to that conversation. Dr. Andrew Dale at 12:05, Associate Vice President of Community Relations at Northwest Mississippi Community College. He'll join us at 12:05, and he'll talk about student debt and kind of what that means in the community college and higher ed domains. Should be an interesting discussion for sure. Ray in Long Beach says, best gas prices around Gulfport, QT exit 31, $3.23. Bucky's exit 24, $3.13. Good to see the 3 handle there, Ray. Appreciate that report. Glad to see that. James in Oxford interesting. He said the data centers will support the humanoids in Poland chasing hogs out of the neighborhood. Wow. U.S.'s next humanoid will be chasing criminals. I actually do believe that to be the case. And as you know, China is working on humanoid soldiers, military fighters as well. Lots of applications, lots of use cases that are only limited by the imagination to a great extent. But certainly the technology is evolving to permit the creation of lifelike robots. Elon Musk says, well, I'll have one day. By the way, SpaceX, last I checked, up again today. I think it crossed the $200 mark. So that's up $40, $50 from when it went, its IPO went public on Friday. So a whole bunch of money being made. Congratulations to those who got in, right? And certainly a number of SpaceX's employees, they all became overnight millionaires. 40 became billionaires. This is fantastic, and the left is absolutely melting down. They can't stand success. They can't stand wealth unless they personally are involved in it. Liz Warren, she's all over the place. She and her ilk calling for onerous wealth taxes. Why do they feel the need to go confiscate something that belongs to somebody else? Don't answer that. I don't want to know the answer. It probably would knock me for a loop. As if, oh yeah, that's the solution. We just can't allow people to gain wealth like that. We got to go take their money. They literally think that tax policy should be designed around some sort of twisted, perverse equity idea. Not to raise the minimum amount of money needed to power the government to perform its constitutionally appropriate duties. No. And I'm seeing things like, you realize we could have free child care for everybody, and we could have free community college, and free this and free that. It's not free. That's the first thing. And secondly, like, are they responsible for paying for everybody's child care and health care and community college and all the other stuff they come up, paid family leave and everything else they dream up? Not really understanding, because I know it takes second, third, fourth order thinking that, do you realize how much good they're doing for society? It's not just this circle of the folks that became the employees, millionaires and billionaires, but a bunch of other people that are connected to this in their industries, in their work, in their families. They all benefit as well. Do they not get that? I had one person say, well, how does this impact and benefit mom and pop shops? So are you saying that mom and pop shops haven't benefited from technological innovation? Is that what you're saying?
That's what they're insinuating, because they're not actually thinking. They're just regurgitating talking points they've been spoon-fed because they're all idiots.
It's just unbelievable. So they basically don't understand fundamental economic principles. And I know you're not surprised that I would say that. But here's what's happened through the years. I've watched this my whole career. All of this powerful technology has been pushed down. And what I mean by that, we've consumerized technology. That's a good thing because it's affordable to everybody. So the small business, the mom and pop shop, Rhino, they have access to the same, actually more powerful technology that they can use in all facets of the operations of their business that once upon a time were reserved for only the largest, most affluent, wealthiest enterprises. That's what's happened. Do they not get that?
Nope.
Find me a small business that doesn't have a very powerful, sophisticated operational system to take care of all those tasks. Think about the drudgery of payroll as an example. My gosh, you can choose from about 24 different payroll providers. You don't have to mess with it. And so what that means is if you're thinking about launching a business, you're going to have employees, the headaches associated with payroll. And by the way, if you get that wrong, the freaking IRS or the state tax commission that comes calling on you, right? You didn't do this right. You owe us money. You just say, handle this for me. Right? So that was reserved for the largest, most sophisticated enterprises 35, 40 years ago. Now everybody, that's just one teeny tiny example. That's what they don't get. And so I dare say what Musk is doing with SpaceX, the same sort of dynamic will occur. I'm convinced of that. There will be something invented, created, produced as a result of this easy access to space and everything we do to create these vehicles and that capability. And some byproduct will occur from that.
But the over-emotional idiots refuse that reality.
Oh, that's totally true.
If reality walked up and smacked the stupid out of their mouth, they still wouldn't recognize reality.
It's sickening to see it. Think about just, and they use social media like, do you realize how many small businesses use social media? Like it's their only form of advertising, as an example. And they'll all tell you, man, this drives more customers into the store than anything I've ever done, as an example. But you engage companies like SuperTalk and our digital services, and they'll help you with all that, help you establish that presence and keep it going. And that's launched whole new industries, such as the one this company is engaged in. And there are people that benefit from that. I know. It's so straightforward, fundamental, obvious common sense. I'm just shocked. Are they just obtuse? I think that's what it is. Really don't want to admit it. Wait, you did that without government? They can't stand that. You're infringing on our gig. Only we can provide value to society. Liz Warren believes that.
That's because when a lying liberal opens their flapping gums and starts spewing nonsense about it's for the kids, we got to feed the hungry, we got to save the planet, we got to do this or that. They don't actually give a rat's rear end about any of those causes. They just want to set up a nice cushy gig for them and theirs to scrape off the top, and it never actually winds up doing anything while you're poorer for paying the taxes to fund it.
Exactly right. That is absolutely spot on. Oh, my gosh. They're in your pockets. Switching gears a bit here. In Washington State, just another reason, another example of why I don't trust some of these employee unions. The Washington State Public Sector Employee Union, they've created a questionnaire. Of course, they invest a lot of money in political candidates. They have created a questionnaire that they're asking candidates to complete, and they'll use your answers to determine whether or not they will support you with an endorsement or perhaps even with a financial contribution. On the other side of this break, I'm going to run down for you what the questions are, and you'll see exactly how nutty they are and what they're focused on and what they prioritize. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
If you're...
Come on. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Thanks so much for joining us today. So, yeah, it's unbelievable the questions that are on this little questionnaire, Rhino, for this is the teachers, the public sector union, excuse me, on that. And this is questions for candidates. And it just shows you where they are. How do you plan to support and expand workers' rights, including the right to organize, the right to strike, and the right to workplace democracy? In other words, are you a pro-union person? Anything else, we can't help you. How do you plan to support and expand reproductive rights? In other words, abortion on demand. How will you educate for indigenous sovereignty? What in the heck? Oh, man. How do you plan to support and expand tenants' rights? In other words, rent control.
And anti-eviction measures.
Well, that's true. Unbelievable.
That's what tenants' rights is. That's what they want. They want squatters' rights so they can all just go squat.
Well, that is absolutely true. And then they want to boycott Israel. They want open borders. And they want all the elements of transgender insanity. So unless you meet that litmus test, you won't get support from the Washington State Public Sector Employee Union. Just absolutely incredible. But that's where we are in this country. And it feels like this is why it's so dang hard to get anything done on a bipartisan basis, because there's this gulf between the parties on some of these fundamental issues. It used to be, well, you want the tax rate to be 38 and I want it to be 36. I'm using that as a simple example. But I want everything you got versus I just want you to pay a little bit of what you earn so that we can power the government. There's no congruence on any of this. And some of this crazy cultural stuff, like the whole transgender insanity, it's a binary thing. And what I mean is, you're either for letting
dudes in dresses
go into girls' private spaces or you're not. It's not like a little bit, because a little bit's not acceptable.
It's worse than that. It's either you celebrate deranged, mentally ill individuals and play into their fantasy world while ignoring reality, or you want them genocided.
That's true. That is absolutely true. And they're not even trying to hide that anymore. They really aren't. There are folks out there saying that that's totally acceptable, right? That's this assassination culture. You don't agree with me, you don't support my ideology, my agenda, you're dead. Literally. That's the way they think. There are people out there, you're watching it right now, and I don't know why the Secret Service isn't all over them, that are out on social media saying it about the president. There's one individual I ran across. I'll see if I can get this video to you. But this is a person that says that the way to improve life on the planet is just to get rid of men altogether. But that's not the best part. The best part is it is a male pretending to be a female. It is a
dude in a dress.
That is actually saying getting rid of men would improve the world.
But no, these are perfectly normal, level-headed, sane individuals. You have no reason to believe that they've got screws loose.
It's unbelievable. And go out to social media with that crap. Oh, my gosh. something that I thought you'd be interested in. Up in New York, there's a hotly contested race for United States House. Representative Adriano Espelay, a Democrat that is the current office holder, is being challenged by another Democrat, Darializa Chevalier. I think that's how you say it. Chevalier, I'm not sure. Both are Democrats. So I'm looking at an interview on local television, and they asked, who are you rooting for to win it all? The current representative, Mexico. The challenger, Senegal. Wait, you're not even rooting for this country. You hate America. They hate America. Coming right back. Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays. Thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. We are pleased to welcome now, it's Representative Rob Roberson. He represents District 43, which I believe still includes, make sure I get this right, Representative Roberson, Oktibbeha, and Winston counties. Is that right?
Winston County is no longer in it, but they're still my people.
Okay.
If they call me, I'm going to be there.
Okay, and we have you on today because you serve as the chair of the House Education Committee, and currently you are serving as, I believe, the chair of the special committees that the Speaker commissioned after the 2026 session to study numerous issues related to our state. The one you're dealing with involves school or school district consolidation.
Right. Donnie Scoggins and I are co-chairing that.
Okay.
He's looking at the possibilities of junior college IHL consolidation type things. I'm looking at K through 12. Together, we're trying to put our heads together and kind of come up with a game plan moving forward. And that's the idea, is to try to see what we can do and move forward with some things that make sense. Consolidation is such, especially in your education world, when you start talking about consolidation, that a lot of people get their dandruff up pretty good, and apparently I'm pretty good at bringing issues to the table that create some of those issues. So I'm looking forward to having these discussions. We had our first meeting. I have to say, Dr. Evans, our the Mississippi Department of Education superintendent, state superintendent, he brought some really good information to the table. I think he's going to go down as one of the state's best superintendents, if any indicators early on of what he is willing to look at and take on some of the things that we really need to be taking a stronger look at for efficiency purposes and making sure our kids are getting the best education they can get.
Yeah. So, and this is nothing new. This is an idea that's certainly been discussed in and around the Capitol. I know a couple of years ago, I ran into the Speaker in the hall, and he mentioned it. He said, "This is something we're going to work on," and didn't really get a whole lot of positive reception there in your house. But he still thinks this is something that the state should investigate, and I'm quite sure that just as we have heard here at this desk on our text line and just in the public in general, you've probably had people that have said we really ought to look at achieving some efficiencies in consolidating schools or school districts. We have too many, and we have lost student population, and maybe we could save some money and get things kind of right-sized. Is that accurate, Representative Roberson?
I think that is perfectly accurate. I mean, when you spend $3 billion with a B, $billion in education, in one of the poorest states, one of the smallest populated states, and we're losing approximately 50,000 kids over a 10-year period, and the estimates are that we're going to continue to lose. No one would expect anybody, and including K through 12 education, not to experiencing a tightening of the belt or some way of us coming to the table with some more efficiencies. If this were a business, and I realize it's not, but that is an industry. Educating our children is an industry in and of itself, and we have to try to look at this from the standpoint of what is the best way to get that product, which is an education, down to our children in the best way possible. And for argument's sake, I don't think anyone, including myself or the speaker, is saying that we're going to go in here and carte blanche make decisions based on purely a set of goals that we have. It's going to be based, just like we talk about students needing to have a particular path for individual education, school districts will be the same way. We're going to have to focus our attention on how we approach the idea of consolidation or efficiencies within the school districts whenever it comes down to, it may come down to closing a school down in a district. Then again, it may come down to two districts that are similarly situated being able to combine administratively. There's so many different ways and ideas that we can pull this efficiency part to the table. And we're not asking for anyone to jump through these hoops within a year. Hopefully we're going to be able to have some idea of what our standards should be and what this looks like over the course of 2 to 3 years. I do believe that there's some pretty obvious glaring issues facing us in certain districts that we do need to take on and give the help to the parents, the teachers, the principals, the kids immediately. However, I'm willing to take a step back and say, okay, what's the best route? How do we get the community input, and how do we make sure that they're making the buy-in? When we did it here in Ottawa County and the Starkville Public Schools, we had to get that buy-in. Now, and I've said this in the past, this was not easy. This was a hard-fought issue that in the long run has turned out to be a great scenario for it. We're an A district now. No one would have thought we could have made the counties an A district 25 years ago. It was just the money wasn't there. The population wasn't there. Now we're in a position to where we've got a wonderful superintendent here in our area that's providing great leadership. And a lot of times that's what's lacking in some of these school districts that are failing is there's a lack of leadership, there's a lack of resources, and common sense dictates that we sit down and try to figure out how we bring these things together and make this work for the benefit of our kids.
Now, you've indicated in discussions with the press that districts with fewer than 1,000 students are kind of at the top of the list for potential consolidation, either of the district or of schools within the district. Talk about that.
Well, here's the thing. Whenever you look at this efficiency model and you're trying to figure out what can operate, if you've got less than 1,000 kids in that whole district and you've got 2 to 4 schools that are open, it's awfully hard to have any efficiencies at all because you're trying to operate utilities and you're trying to operate with buildings that are falling apart. And so going into these districts that have fewer kids, having the conversation, is there a school that's near them that we could put together, or is shutting down a couple of the schools in that district going to give them the viability to be able to make it? This is not a punishment. This is just a reality of trying to save these schools where we can. And unfortunately, a lot of people look at this as, oh, you're punishing these districts or because they're not scoring at the level that they need to. Well, that's not the point. The point is trying to make certain that the kids that are leaving there know how to read, write, and do arithmetic. Yeah,
absolutely. So, but this issue, like I said, it's been going on a while. It's been something that's been discussed. But Here's what I don't think gets enough attention. We all hear the squawks about the high administrative costs. We've had reports that say we don't have as much going to the classroom as we should. Too much is going to the back office. You see reports of complaints about the high salaries received by our superintendents, or maybe having too many superintendents. All the above with respect to the back office. But one thing that doesn't get talked about, Representative Roberson, you touched on it a bit, is the cost of maintaining all these aged, dilapidated buildings. It's the CapEx and the maintenance. It's monumental.
The bottom line, and listen, I own 3 old buildings downtown Starkville. I can tell you right now, when you own a building that's over 50, some of these buildings are 60 and 70 years old. When you own a building like that, you're going to have deterioration that there's no coming back from. And that is a huge expense. The utility bill by itself is a huge expense. So and then unfortunately we go and we put a superintendent over these areas. And generally speaking, superintendents have the experience of dealing with school matters, but now you just put a building that is a sinking ship in his lap, and you've asked him to go out here and do the impossible, which is keep this thing keep this up to a standard with really no money, and it's impossible. I've heard multiple conversations about gymnasiums that leak, that with the air conditioning systems that have to be duct taped to keep them afloat for one more year. These are, when you're spending the kind of money that we're spending, we shouldn't be having these issues.
Yeah, I dare say probably more of that it goes to that maintenance type services and effort than it does to the back office. You're turning the superintendents into property managers. We got a break. Can you hang with us? We can keep talking.
Yes, sir.
Representative Rob Roberson is on the line with us. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Nowadays. And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
Now, on to the real part.
Dynamite! On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
When I think back on all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think at all.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. We're visiting with Representative Rob Roberson. He, of course, chairs the House Education Committee, co-chairing along with Representative Donnie Scoggins this special committee commissioned by Speaker of the House Jason White to study school district consolidation. So, in the city of Jackson, just kind of wrapping up this building maintenance dilemma and the cost associated with that, which makes sense given that most of these buildings were built decades ago. We got way more school buildings that were built a long time ago than we do that were built recently. And typically the only way a school district builds a new building for a school at any level usually is to get the voters to approve a bond issue, right, Representative Roberson? They go out and take on a little debt to do that because
we're going to.
Right? You're essentially doing a mortgage on a building you're going to use for a long time. That makes sense. They don't have a bunch of cash sitting around and say, oh, yeah, let's just go build a building. But the city of Jackson, just want to get your thoughts on this. I just read there are 14 unsold school buildings. They, of course, have probably been hit the worst of all the school districts with respect to declining enrollment. It's the state's largest school district. 14 buildings around the city of Jackson, school buildings, that are just vacant, but they're having to kind of maintain them still.
The biggest issue I see with those, these are assets that are on the books for the school district. They have to maintain them. They have to keep a roof on them. They have to make certain that people aren't breaking in. There's a multitude of issues that you don't even think about. You say, oh, well, let's just shut them down.
Yeah.
And they're sitting there. But they're not on the tax roll. Truthfully, in a lot of the locations these schools are at, no one's going to buy them. They're just because of the where they're located.
Yeah.
So some of this is it's such a problem in the sense that we've got to sometimes rethink how we're looking at these things. I do believe that Jackson is going to be on the mend as we get new leadership, and I do believe that there are going to be opportunities in the future for these buildings, but that doesn't help the school district as it sits right now.
Yeah.
There's no one going in there helping them maintain this stuff, and it's really a major issue. And even if the school district eventually wanted to build something, you have these old buildings that you can't afford to keep. I can tell you, new construction now is outrageous. We're in the middle of building something here in Octoball School District. I mean, we've got $140 million into a high school. That is a huge sum of money under any pretense. I'm very much in favor of us moving forward. The community has been very favorable. Now, I have heard there's a little bit of concern about our property taxes going up.
Sure.
However, the bottom line is we've got to have it. We probably should have built a new high school 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But you're either growing or you're dying. And in some of our areas, in some of our schools, it's pretty obvious we're dying. The symptoms are not good. And if we can stick our head in the sand and pretend that everything's going to be okay, or we can actually have a conversation. I saw a Facebook post, which was a legitimate Facebook post in the sense of what the question was. The question is, how can you legitimately talk about building charter schools in certain areas and shutting other schools down? Well, those are two different issues. One is talking about families coming together, community coming together, and creating a school. The other is something that's been going on for 50, 60 years and is now dead.
Right.
Those are two different arguments. Now, you can have the argument, how do we need to maintain these resources? And charter schools may need to be included in that argument. But that is not the same as us as a community saying, hey, we would like the one-house school idea of a charter school that's a smaller situation where parents and the state have cooperated together to make that work, and a school that's sitting out there dying under its own weight. So
education, of course, as you alluded to in the last segment, all education, including higher ed, community colleges, 54% of our total general fund budget, $3.67 billion, I believe. I think you said roughly 3 of that in K through 12, correct? So,
right.
Yeah, those
3 of that's K through 12.
Right. So, of course, I think what's on a lot of people's minds, Representative Roberson, is that, all right, if we're going to do some consolidation and we're doing that to achieve efficiencies and hopefully save money, I think the natural question from taxpayers is, do we get a tax break for this? I just wanted to review this, and you correct me if I get the numbers wrong here, but on average, about 45% of a district's funding comes from the state appropriation. 30% plus comes from local funding sources, mainly property taxes, ad valorem taxes, and then the rest comes from the federal government. So I don't see the legislature reducing the student funding formula as a result of consolidation. I can't see you guys coming out and say, hey, guys, you're getting less money now per student. I don't see school district supervisors at the county level reducing the millage on property taxes as a result of any savings attained with consolidation. Can you talk about that?
I think first and foremost, we need I want to get rid of the myth that this is all about efficiency. It is. Okay. So I'm not trying to diminish that. But first and foremost, I want our kids educated.
Sure.
I want our children to get the best education they can get. Then the secondary part of that is if we can find ways to reduce property taxes, ways to do the things that we need to do. Now, we've already reduced taxes at the state level when it comes to certain arenas. But I think that I cannot argue that we're not spending enough money in K through 12 right now. I can't argue that. We've got half our budget wrapped up into K through 12 education. What I can say is it ain't going to get cheaper in the future. And I know that. You know that. Anybody that understands the way, economics works, so far what I've seen, everything costs more than it did 10 years ago. And frankly, it's going to cost more 10 years from now. What I do know is if we keep on the road that we're on, we're headed toward a wall. There's only so many taxpayers in the state of Mississippi. We can either grow our tax base or we can hit that wall. And if we don't create jobs in this state, we don't save and make it the ability for the brain drain to stop where young people want to live here. I believe this with all of my heart. Mississippi is one of the best kept secrets in the nation. However, do we have our issues? We absolutely have our issues. But the baseline of this for families moving to our state is making sure that we have one of the best education systems that we have. And secondary to that, or primary to that, is having jobs. And if we can build that, I do believe we grow a tax base that keeps up with it and keeps up with the nation. It's interesting to me when you look at the future of our state, how generally you get elected these days is do nothing. That's the truth. How you get beats doing some of the things that my speaker and I have talked about is we get out here and start talking about things that are uncomfortable. Yeah. Well, guess what? We're going to keep talking about uncomfortable things until we get solutions to this stuff. Do I believe that our taxes are going to go down? I doubt it. I'm not going to sit here and tell the state of Mississippi like a typical politician might do and say, hey, yeah, your taxes are going to go down. I doubt very seriously. But what I can say is we're going to have better schools. We're going to have better schools. If it absolutely kills us, dragging us uphill all the way, we're going to have better schools at the end of the day.
And I think we have to also understand that better schools means we benefit as a state. And to your point, it's critical that we attract industry into our state to keep these people in our state, because I've said this so many times, Representative Roberson, I think you would agree, we're spending all this money educating these students. We're making monumental gains, but then they leave. We're just subsidizing the other states is all we're doing. We don't get benefit from them being a student and doing well in the classroom. We get benefit when they leverage that to launch their professional careers in our state and make this their home and raise their families here. That's how we benefit as a state.
One of the best things that I had happen to me on a personal level, I have 4 children. My daughter and her husband have moved back to Starkville, and she's actually practicing law. He's an engineer here in West Point. And I'm thrilled that they were both able to get their education in this state, and they're here to stay. And I have my first granddaughter as well. So it's awesome. It's a wonderful thing. So if we can keep building on that, I think that momentum is going to take us through.
I totally agree. Can't thank you enough for coming on today. Enjoyed the conversation. Appreciate your efforts here. I look for some meaningful, substantive proposals coming out of your committee. Thanks, Representative Roberson.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From the Seabrook
Middays with Gerard Gibert. It is on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. Florida suing TikTok over harmful content for kids. I have mixed feelings about that. I really do. I'm not exactly sure what they deem as harmful, and that could be highly subjective. And secondly, are there laws, I guess, that they're breaking here that would warrant a lawsuit? And I say again, and I know it's somewhat rhetorical, where are the people responsible for raising these kids? Like, if you don't want them to be exposed to harmful content, there are ways to prevent that. And I guess today it's digital content. And, there was a time when you had to hide, right, all the printed content that would be inappropriate for youngsters. But they'd still figure out a way to get to it. So I don't know about suing. I just think that just drives the cost up of lots of stuff, honestly, when government steps in and sues private companies. And that's not to say that they don't have some responsibility to bear. Certainly, that is the case. But I say again, where are the families? And that's a little different than when you've got someone out there that is acting in an exploitative way. Exploitative, I guess is the word. That's a little different, where they're entrapping a child. That's the person, not the platform. Now, certainly the platform has a responsibility. I mean, we have laws here in the state, right? Is it Walker's Law, Rhino, that we passed a couple of years ago? And I think that was appropriate. And that just basically means, look, platforms, you've got to do a better job. And, in fact, in the state of Mississippi, you'll be committing a crime if you don't filter out these bad people and prevent them from using your tools to exploit young people. Named after, of course, an individual who ultimately took his own life as a result of being exploited online. That's different. And Lord knows we got bad people that target the vulnerable in our society, young people and seniors. I've been getting bombarded lately with cell phone carriers and sending texts, calling and leaving voicemails. You're going to miss it today. If you don't call us back today, and they give you a link to go log into, and it's enticing, and I'm quite sure that there are a lot of people that do act on that, do respond, is essentially providing their credentials to these bad people and signing up for stuff that they don't know they're signing up for. Yeah, that's criminal. And they wouldn't do it if it didn't work. It works, unfortunately. And it's a lot of unsuspecting senior folks that think, wow, that sounds like a way I could save money, and only to find out, yeah, they just wanted your personal information so they could go use it, take you down. It's terrible. So there are ways, unfortunately, of getting to the unsuspecting and that are being taken advantage of and don't know it. But certainly, I believe these platforms have a responsibility to include reasonable safeguards to protect the vulnerable, children and the elderly, senior citizens in our country. I just don't know if it warrants suing unless they have laws on the books. If they do, like we do here in the state of Mississippi, and they're referencing that law or invoking that law to support the lawsuit, sure, that's perfectly legal and makes sense. I guess what I'm saying here, Rhino, I don't want us to turn into France. Let's be careful. Let's do what's reasonable, what's right. Let's ensure these companies are protecting, but it's super hard when you've got billions of users, honestly, that are sharing and interacting round the clock. It takes some very powerful technology coupled with people to implement and administer those protections and controls. No doubt about it. Let's see here on the C Spire text line. I appreciate the honesty. This has been from Madison in regards to taxes. I keep hearing how we are going to eliminate or lower various taxes. I just don't see it happening unless they make major cuts to the budget. It sounds like we are on the way to increasing the budget, not decreasing it. I'll go further than that, Ben, to agree with you. I don't see any time ever at both the federal and state level where the budget in any given year is less than the prior year. I just don't see it. Can't comprehend it. Can't fathom it. And with respect to taxes, I know there are folks out there, some are political candidates. They're talking about, we're going to cut your property taxes. And look, that's popular. And I'd love to see my property taxes cut as well. You've seen all sorts of ideas, anything from, hey, if you're over 65, you don't pay property taxes anymore. If you don't have any children in school, you don't pay property taxes. Member or a veteran of our armed forces, you don't pay property taxes, or you get a significant cut. All those categories do. But on the other hand, you got counties, school districts, cities, all of whom rely on those revenues to operate, especially counties and school districts. I don't think they're inclined to say, we need less revenue and cutting. Now, I know that the typical response would be, well, you just need to cut spending. And I'm for that as well. But we've got all these old buildings. We got fewer students. And here's a big risk. We got fewer students, and the funding formula from the state is based on head count. So you could cut all kinds of expenses, if that's possible, at the school district or school level. But if you're losing students, you're getting less money. And so that becomes certainly a problem. No doubt about that. But you also have fewer students to educate. So you need to get efficient and need to think about ways to counter this loss of student population. So what about this, Rhino? Do we have any situations in Mississippi, and this is a question I don't really know the answer to, where there's literally one building or campus that's K through 12? Do we have an elementary, middle, high school combined onto one campus, one building? Just thinking about efficiencies, associated with the cost of operating buildings and everything involved in that. I'm not sure. But is that perhaps an idea? If you think about, say, a small district that has an elementary, a middle, and a high school, maybe they could shut those down, have one building, or bring them all into a single building because they've lost population. I'm just throwing ideas out. I don't know, honestly.
Only one I can think of that's public would be, is Belmont still K through 12 on the same school grounds?
You're talking about up in, is that Tishomingo County?
Yeah.
I believe, that's where Senator Daniel Sparks is from, Belmont. I don't know. That's an idea. And if it's, I'm just thinking about the efficiencies associated with that. Transportation efficiencies, for example, just building maintenance and operational efficiencies.
You see that with varying sizes of private schools.
Right. That's right. Sure do. And I'm thinking if the population, the student population has declined so precipitously, and it is difficult to make ends meet when you got fewer students in this one building, maybe they all come together. Just an idea. I will say this, any of these discussions, in my view, should include detailed analysis, detailed profiles. This is what the school, the district would look like post-consolidation. From the org chart down to the buildings and the maintenance, the cost, the pay, both in the classroom to teachers as well as the back office administrative costs. There needs to be a model built that shows. And it needs to compare. What are those costs versus the cost pre-consolidation of the two or even multiple schools that are combining into one, or districts combining into one. So hopefully that's part of the plan for any serious proposal to consolidate schools or districts. And then if that does say, hey, look, supervisor school district, it's going to cost less money to operate this way, then maybe it's reasonable to request some sort of tax relief. I could be down for that.
Yeah, it looks like there are a few others I've been able to dig up.
Okay.
You got the Nanawaya Attendance Center, you got West Lincoln School, you got Belmont, you got Tremont Attendance Center.
Okay.
So there's several examples of
all
K
right.
through 12 all on a single campus.
Okay. Well, we have somebody on the C Spire text line. All 4 Union County schools are K through 12. Okay. Well, that makes sense. But I guess what I'm saying is maybe there's opportunities to enable and implement that same sort of single sort of campus building model in other areas that currently are operating multiple schools for a small number of students. Maybe that makes sense. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Poly up of Mississippi.
You know what that means.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
We'll do it live.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. The Eagles, Lion Eyes, classic hit. Good one there, Rhino. Appreciate that. On the C Spire text line, Brandon from Cleveland says, I use SuperTalk for advertising my towing business, McCain Towing and Recovery, and really impressed with them. Works well. Appreciate you telling us that, Brandon. Absolutely. As Rhino knows, this is an incredibly powerful platform. We are blessed to serve in our roles on this platform. Heard statewide, if I'm not mistaken, the only statewide radio network in the country. I don't think there's another state that
privately held, yeah.
But okay, yep. So, and you know as well as I do, you travel around the state, you run into people. Yeah, they know who you are. It's unbelievable. It's like fame I didn't sign up for. But what that tells you is that people are listening to your advertising. That's the point. And to those that don't really understand, that's what makes this company work. It's the good people, the good customers of SuperTalk that believe in the platform, that invest in advertising. That's why we exist. They are our source of revenue. I just added to it. We don't talk about it enough, but we have a digital team here that does fantastic work and can help organizations with all their digital needs to expand their promotion and marketing efforts beyond just this platform, on-air platform, but throughout all the other approaches to getting to people to let them know about your goods and services. And we have a top-notch team involved. And
if you're on the consumer side of it, where you're not trying to advertise, but you're just trying to stay informed, we've got SuperTalk Mississippi News.
That's exactly right.
If you go to supertalk.fm, they just put up an article about my favorite topic of the day, the World Cup. Because they've got a whole article up about our new favorite friend, America's new friend, Freddie from Germany, the German soccer fan who's also a fan of Ronaldo, traveling across the Southeast. Got a whole article up documenting his travels, showcasing the amount of, or the trip he took across the southernmost part of the Magnolia State on Highway 90 there. Got the tweet from the governor inviting him back. Got a couple other Mississippians giving him well wishes and wishing he could come back to the Magnolia State. So if you're like me and you're obsessed with the World Cup, go over to supertalk.fm, check out the latest article.
Yeah, and appreciate them. So you're right. So complete deal right here at SuperTalk. But appreciate you letting us know that, Brandon, and hopefully your business is doing well, and hopefully your advertising here on SuperTalk sounds like it is boosting your business, and that's great. Good to hear. Obviously, Rhino, people wouldn't pay for it if it didn't work for them. It's working for them. No doubt about it. I hear the same from my friends at Element Wealth, how it's expanded their business as well. Just hearing us talk about it every day, we are grateful to them for sponsoring our show every day, sponsoring the studio. Really a cool deal. So talking about this idea of school district consolidation in the state of Mississippi, be sure and look at Sunflower Consolidated School District. This is Rockin' Bee RV Park on the C Spire text line. It's made up of the former Sunflower County Schools, Drew School District, and Indianola School District. It was consolidated a few years ago. Thanks for pointing that out. I do recall that, and I think let us know, Rockin' Bee RV, that it's worked out pretty well. It's been a good outcome. Let's see here. As a former educator with 21 years, this on the C Spire text line, experience in the classroom, I don't have any doubts that consolidation would help a lot of counties offer better opportunities to students. As far as Jackson Public Schools, maybe they should give some of those schools away to nonprofits or something. At least they would no longer be spending money on maintaining a building they never use. Honestly, I don't think there are any nonprofits that want them, because you're just inheriting a big old mess that would require a lot of money to remodel and renovate for your purpose. They've tried to sell them to no avail at this point. 14. One of them is French Elementary School, where I grew up, over in West Jackson off Bowling Street. It was shut down years ago. It's just sitting there. So sad, because it was such a thriving school at one point, certainly when I was growing up, full of elementary school students, great teachers, and just a great overall school environment, and a great campus they were sitting on, too, with lots of land around it for the recess fields and basketball court and all that stuff. Really cool. Yeah, problem. But I hear you. And I don't know that a lot of the money's being spent necessarily on maintaining the old schools. There is some, of course, because they would just be completely overgrown and become a public nuisance. Not to the extent the ones that are being used are, though. There's just a myriad of problems every day that our tax money is going to fund these various repairs and maintenance activities. It's a huge problem, and it's no different than our aging water infrastructure in municipalities. Those are just all at the age where it's just constantly something new that they're having to spend money on just to keep the water flowing. We're going to step aside for a break right now. It's top of the hour. That means SuperTalk News and Fox News is coming your way. And then it's Dr. Andrew Dale with Northwest Mississippi Community College.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord. Haven't been home in a year or more. I hope she holds on a little longer.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays, coming at you live from the Element Wealth Studio. We're pleased to kick off the hour with Dr. Andrew Dale, Associate Vice President of Community Relations for Northwest Mississippi Community College. Dr. Dale, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
You bet. So you have authored a piece that's published at supertalk.fm, an opinion piece entitled Why Student Debt Should Scare Parents More Than Community College. What's the message here, Dr. Dale?
Well, the message really is there are a lot of choices for parents to be making today, and the cost of higher education is increasingly higher and higher. I personally have student debt outstanding still that I'm paying on, way past my graduation days from college or enrollment. But there are really a lot of options that parents should consider when choosing enrollment this summer. And it's sort of to kind of get the thought process moving. There are, you look at generic apple or organic apple and the way that people see the product that we make here at the community colleges across Mississippi. And people are sort of engineered to go for the most expensive thing.
Yeah.
Usually when you buy a car, when you buy clothes, that's just the way it is. But the incredible amount of value that community colleges can add to an individual's future, there's just no second nature for it. That the ability to be debt-free when you graduate and step into a job, which allows you to have a better economic outlook. I write in that piece about a couple students whom I know personally. They are both medical doctors today. One of them was my former student, and then one of them was not. And they were roommates at two institutions. in Mississippi as they progressed through several degrees. One of them started out with a lot less debt than the other one, just because she attended a community college. We have that here at Northwest Mississippi Community College, where we see students progress through our programs and then go to a university, and they walk out the door and they're ready to buy a car, or they're ready to get started with life. I've had to buy a couple cars lately, and I just know that the price of goods and services just keeps going up.
Yeah.
And so if you can just take one of those things away on the back end that isn't a burden anymore, why would parents not want to consume or choose the option that is the best version for their students? So when you get into it, community colleges offer the same thing that universities do across the state of Mississippi and more because of our career technical education opportunities. But if you look at the specific academic programs that we have, the people that teach our classes are the same ones that in some cases teach at the university. They could be taking our community college classes in a classroom at a high school, or when they are engaging on our campus, they may have an instructor that has the same degree that is teaching at the university, maybe even graduated from the same program. So the things that we have are no different than the university. You're going to get the same product. Just one of them puts you at a better financial position at the end.
It's mind-boggling. You talk about it in your piece that the total amount collectively of student outstanding debt, $1.6 trillion. That's just incredible. That's a lot of people that are saddled with a big financial commitment that for many will endure for a couple of decades, perhaps.
That is so true. And that number is only going to get higher because costs, as I mentioned, goods and services are only getting more. The institutions are pinched as well. So some of them are raising tuition or raising fees. You've got to be able to put your students and your children and your family's future in a position that allows for the most success. And community colleges are bar none the best option for Mississippi's young people, even adults who are trying to convert whatever career they're in and get a new degree and get into a new career option. So it's the best, easiest, fastest way to get to be the most successful for your future. I should say that.
According to the Princeton Review, we just talked about this, shared the story yesterday on MidDays. Now there are at least 16 institutions of higher ed in the country where the total all-in cost for tuition, room and board fees, et cetera, $100,000 a year. $100,000 a year. 16. And I made a point, and just get your reaction to this, that I just don't know that the education one receives in one of those institutions is $100,000 a year better, or whatever the case may be. Maybe it's 3 times as much or twice as much than another particular school. I've always thought you sort of get out of it what you put into it, regardless of where you go. It's a matter of what you are willing to invest. Look, the content's pretty much the same everywhere, and the professors are of high quality everywhere.
In those cases, they're paying for prestige, or bragging rights, or the ability to be in a certain location and make a great Facebook post because I have received a status, or said status. But in some of those cases, it is the spending of money that is the thing that is the coolest thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Look at me, I have bought this thing. Well, if that's your future, you may not have bought it, especially if it's on a student loan. You're participating in it, but you're going to be paying for it the rest of your life. That probably very few Mississippians are participating in an education at that level. Across Mississippi, community colleges are here to serve the vast majority of Mississippians, of which usually engage in our processes. There are more than 60% of undergraduate students who participate in community college classes in the state of Mississippi. And what we know is that community college graduates, by and large, stay inside the state. So if community colleges are the most efficient users of Mississippi's tax dollars, of which they are, then why wouldn't we as a state drive students to choose community colleges and then engage in the next steps? So it's better for families. It's better for Mississippians. It's better for our taxpayers. It just seems like the win-win-win scenario. I would encourage folks to just go visit the community college that's closest to them. I happen to work at Northwest Mississippi Community College. We have several campuses up here in the corner of the state, and they are beautiful. We get opportunities all the time to visit with folks who come on our campus, and they say, isn't this a 4-year school? It's larger than the 4-year school that I went to as an undergraduate. And what we know is we try to do the best thing for our students. We want to be the most inviting thing for our students. And so community college has this culture about it where people kind of think, ooh, that's community college. It's the 13th grade. That is a misnomer all across the state. Go visit the campus. See what's going on there. And you're not choosing a mascot to teach your classes. You're choosing your best future when you do that. And so that's the point of the article, to help parents just take a step back, because yes, we love our university partners and the campuses are amazing. That's one of my favorite things to do when I'm traveling, is to go see a campus, a new institution, wherever I am, Citadel, Purdue, Ohio State, just, looking at all that's so incredible. And walking on campus, you would think, well, who wouldn't want to go here when you see how much investment has been put into a specific place. But if you look at the investment that you as a high school student or a parent of a high school student can make in the future of your family, the best version of that here is Mississippi's community colleges.
Interesting. So, Dr. Dale, how would you contrast, say that the 2 years that you spent in a community colleges to those first 2 years that you would spend in a 4-year school? What are the differences, if any?
Yeah, they're very similar, but there are some advantages for community colleges. Likely the class sizes are incredibly smaller. You're not going to be in that 150-person 101 class that's sort of a weed out thing. You're going to have an instructor who knows your name, and you're going to have the opportunity to engage in that person with more questions, more back and forth. You're going to feel valued as a student. There are more leadership opportunities for students in community colleges. So at a 4-year school, you deal with 4 years worth of enrolled students. At a community college, you only have 2 years worth of students. So you have more SGA opportunities, more leadership opportunities at different clubs and organizations across campus, more opportunities to be a leader in service organizations or on team sports, in band, in choir. So you become a leader, and maybe you just walked out of a high school and you were the valedictorian and you walk into a bigger pool and you're nobody. Yeah. But that's not what happens at a community college. You know everybody because they're smaller, class size is smaller.
A lot to be said for that.
It usually ends up working better. There's something that also on Phi Theta Kappa, I didn't mention that.
No, if you can hang around, we can continue it. Dr. Andrew Dale,
absolutely.
Coming right back.
If you're feeling it. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Well studio. We're visiting with Dr. Andrew Dale, Associate Vice President of Community Relations at Northwest Mississippi Community College. So before we went to break, you were finishing up, Dr. Dale. We were just talking about kind of the contrast of the 2 years you would spend in a community college versus 2 years at a more traditional 4-year school. And I think one of the key takeaways was that you're typically looking at smaller class sizes and a little bit closer knit community of students and of course faculty and administration. People know your name, more opportunities to participate in extracurricular activities. continue on with your thoughts there, please.
Absolutely. So I taught high school for 4 years, and the rest of my 21 years in Mississippi education has been in the community college system. So I know really well the opportunities that it affords students to be able to propel themselves forward. So you just mentioned all of those great things, and I have a lot of students that were involved in those kind of programs or athletics, et cetera. But one thing that is really tremendous is Phi Theta Kappa is an international 2-year honor society for community colleges. Colleges, universities across the country have some really great scholarships for community college students who are in this honor society. So it's like National Honor Society for high school students, or there are others for university students. But you see more and more that in Mississippi specifically, our students are able to transition to a university, and it's pretty close to a full tuition scholarship if they're in this organization. What's also interesting is this Phi Theta Kappa organization is Mississippi based.
Yeah.
Its home office is right next to the IHL building in Jackson, Mississippi. So our university partners real well because it's such a local entity. So a student makes A's and B's, and they get an opportunity to pay $80 to participate. If they're a community college student and they have maybe 30 or more hours with the community college, they get invited to participate in Phi Theta Kappa, and there's an admission fee to participate. So it could be $60 or $80 or whatever each school has for that. But that $60 or $80, and you'll like this, what I'm about to say, because there's no market that you talk about where this exists. You pay that $60 or $80 and it is magnified thousands of times because a student, after they pay their $60 or $80 because they've gone to class and they've read the textbook and they've made the grades, all they have to do is show up then and participate. They've got the grades to be in here, and they get scholarships that pays their way through the university for those final 2 years. They may not have had a scholarship coming out of high school that would have done that, but they can spend a couple of years at the community college and get that GPA where it needs to be and prove themselves to get a scholarship that actually pays more than they would have gotten when they walked out of high school.
Interesting. Yeah, a little bit of history on Phi Theta Kappa, used to be headquartered in Canton, Mississippi. I remember it. Actually implemented their first automated system in there in the late 80s. They moved to Jackson, where you're talking about near IHL, in 1990. So, right, a proud Mississippi tradition, the honorary for the community college world, headquartered right here in the state of Mississippi. Really, really cool, quite the distinction. To talk about, Dr. Dale, just the very high quality of Mississippi's community colleges. I mean, it's known throughout the nation of being one of, if not the strongest community college system in the country.
We receive a lot of national recognition. A lot of our institutions are doing great things. Northwest, for its efforts this year, has had athletic teams playing on the national level, getting recognition in that way. We host folks on campus who are national artists. We bring people to campus to engage in things in ways that most community colleges across the country are not able to do. So we try to serve our communities. We try to be the best version of education for our students. That goes back to that conversation just a little bit earlier, where we are the best use of Mississippi's tax dollars in the education space. If you were to take each institution, so there's 32 institutions across the state of Mississippi, and their annual Mississippi budget request, and just tag that against the fall enrollment of each institution, you're going to see the community colleges float to the top. Actually, I haven't done the data sort for this year, but 2 years ago, Northwest, the institution I work for, was at the top of that list, meaning we spend the least amount of dollars, tax dollars, for students in the state of Mississippi per student here at Northwest. So great for Mississippi, great for Mississippi families. It's really a win-win scenario.
Yeah. Help us out with this, understand this, Dr. Dale. You've got a high school student that obviously met all the requirements to graduate, but maybe they need to beef up their skills in a certain subject area in order to succeed in their college career and then in their professional career as well. Is a community college perhaps a better fit for them? And do community colleges generally have some sort of programs to remediate and to get them on the proper level in whatever subject they need help in?
Absolutely. Northwest actually has the largest adult education program in the state. So, but beyond that, any student who needs help along the way, we have math labs and speaking labs, English writing labs. So, and most of the schools across the state are coming into this model where they do wraparound services for students that help them take that next step. The one thing that so I have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, and I'm thinking about where they're going to be in a few years. And the amount of distractions that you can receive in a major university college town in the state of Mississippi are so great. Most of our community colleges in Mississippi are in smaller communities, and their campuses are smaller. So it depends on the maturity of the student. Think about that for a moment. It isn't really the academic level that you've got going on, because all of these are options, but you need to think about it on a personal level. Is it better for there to be some one-on-one interaction? Because it's not necessarily that academic scenario that's in play, although it totally is. It's the bigger picture, because there are so many more life-changing decisions that need to be made. You're sending a student off to become a mature adult, and you can do that in incremental steps rather than just really dumping off the deep end. University of Alabama, there's 50,000 or 60,000 students there in Tuscaloosa attending the university. Is that the kind of pool you want to dump your child into? Or let's take a step in the right direction and send them an hour or two away and have them invest in the community college there, learn a little bit about themselves, and feel like that they're a leader with better confidence and take that next step.
It appears to me as well that the community colleges have really stepped up collaboration with industry and the private sector and employers in our state, really focusing on programs, training, subjects, curricula that truly does prepare them for their professional lives, ready to hit the ground running upon graduation.
We have some really great CTE partners. Each of our programs has a council that meets with local employers and manufacturers, industry partners, to help us know if we're teaching the right thing in those courses. They'll even give us some feedback. Hey, we hired somebody 2 years and I noticed that they didn't know something about this specific area. You might want to talk about that before you get done with the program. So we get constant feedback about what we're doing with our students, about how the program's going. And if they see something on the front end before it happens, like, have you thought about this? In the manufacturing process, there's from point A to point B on making your widget. You need to make sure that you talk about the C process. So we get in there. We have a lot of hands-on things, and it's so important to have those relationships with our industry partners, because we wouldn't survive without them. And I don't think they would without us.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's refreshing, because when I was going to school, it just seems like there was a firewall between industry and academics, and they didn't talk a lot. Not to say that they didn't prepare you, but you felt like that maybe the coursework and the programs could have been more closely aligned with your professional life post-graduation, and it seemed to be some hesitation. We got about 30 seconds left. Your thoughts?
That's so true. The Associate of Applied Science now is not a terminal degree anymore. You can take that to the university. So There's not the worker and the manager. You can all have that beginning at the community college. Yeah. It's worth investigating for parents across the state.
Makes perfect sense. Well, thanks for coming on and highlighting the assets, the benefits, the value proposition of Mississippi's community colleges, and, of course, your school, Northwest Mississippi Community College. Dr. Andrew Dale, Associate Vice President for Community Relations. Thanks for coming on, Dr. Dale. Appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
Again, happy to do it. Thanks for inviting me.
Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From the Seabrook
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
Welcome back, everyone. That's Poco. That's on the all-hit request line. I requested it. Call it love. Trying to get the house band to take that one on, Rhino. It's a good tune. On the C Spire text line, we had two sons who were able to qualify and take advantage of the Phi Theta Kappa scholarship and get a free ride to Mississippi State. A huge help financially for our family. Thanks. Thanks for passing that on. Yeah, agree. It is a fantastic program. They do a great job, and it really is incredible that that organization is based, headquartered here. I don't know the history of its founding. I just know that it used to be off the square in Canton. That's where their headquarters was, and I did look that up on the break. They did move, in fact, to Jackson, to where the IHL is located, where public television is located, the ITS, Information Technology Services for the state's headquarters and their data center, all there on that campus on sandwiched between Ridgewood Road, Lakeland Drive. It's pretty cool. Appreciate that. Somebody said, yeah, Dan in Hattiesburg. I'm so happy for Dr. Dale. He attended my small church while he was attending William Carey. He was also a pretty good tuba player. Thanks for passing that on, Dan. David on the C Spire text line from Socher says, give me the $400,000 and I'll work my way up somewhere, talking about the $100,000 a year price tag, and up, by the way, of certain four-year institutions in the country. It truly is mind-boggling. And some of them are, I want to say a couple of them are like north of MIT, maybe north of 200,000. I've just always felt like that I'm not sure that whatever the delta is, let's just say that a traditional public university, say it's $50,000 a year, that's actually crazy high. 20,000. So 20,000 versus 100 is the higher priced institution $80,000 better? And I think you're probably aware of this, Rhino. A lot of employers have said, you know what? There was a time when, oh, wow, you've got a degree from one of these august institutions, and you would get the nod. Maybe you would get higher pay. Not so much anymore. That difference has diminished. It's more about the person and how they present themselves and what they have to offer. That's become way more important as factors in the hiring process than it used to be, a little more centered and focused on the degree, having a degree, where you got your degree from, become less relevant. I can say this, I think I may have shared this before on the show, but no big deal. When I went to work for Anderson right out of school, I was intimidated by being in a class, a professional training class, for 3 weeks, being the only one in the class that attended a public university. Now, Anderson didn't have a habit of prioritizing or preferring those that attended a private university. It just worked out that in my class of 16, I was the only one. And I'll admit, I was a little intimidated at first. But after you go through the days and you're all working on these assignments, you realize, you know what? We all put our clothes on the same way, as the saying goes. You're no smarter than me just because you went to one of these prestigious universities, and the training I got was every bit as good as yours. And, you know, the slate's clean when you get into the professional world. All that matters to get you in the door, as you know. But after that, nobody cares, right? It doesn't matter. It should be that way. It's your performance on the job that matters, of how you progress in your professional life. Your degrees, that's nice to kind of reference in an introduction for maybe a speaking engagement, but that's about all it's worth for at that point. It doesn't mean squat, honestly. And here's the other thing. The rate at which information changes, new things get invented constantly. Heck, whatever you studied in certain courses of study, it doesn't even apply anymore once you're in the private sector. Or it's been adjusted. It's been enhanced. The point is, I believe, always have believed, the key takeaway from college is learning how to learn. Or any education. It's learning how to learn at any level. Because the learning never stops. And those who say, I'm done learning, I'm just going to kind of grind and work repetitively. First, you're a subject for being automated. You're a target. And second, you're probably not going very far. You've got to want to learn new things. The education continues. It's endless. It should be. Good news is, my gosh, we have so much access to all this new information that we never had before. So if you're not improving your body of knowledge, it's because you're not trying. Not because it isn't available and it isn't there. And we even have tools to help you discern between what's fact and what's fiction, what's reality and what's lie. Maybe we need some of our elected officials, we need to train them a little bit on using that. But, no, I think it's great. But I agree with you, David, that I'm not sure that the price tag justifies it. I agree with you on that. So, let's see what else we got.
I mean, in that same conversational topic, you think about the industries or the firms or the organizations that were the worst culprits of nepotism and exclusive hiring practices based on academia and stuff like that. You look at them and you start to notice that nepotism is never going to go away just because of how insular a lot of those industries are. But the competition level in those industries has risen to a point where it can't be the end-all, be-all for their hiring practices, or they get left behind. They can't just hire all Princeton grads or all Harvard grads because the old boss did it that way. Well, yeah, the old boss did it that way in a much less competitive time.
Totally true. And something that Dr. Dale alluded to, it's just as important to learn social skills, right? It's great that you've got this degree from this highfalutin college, but if we got to put you in the closet and shove the work under the door to you, not exaggerating there either, you're probably not going to provide a lot of value to the organization. You got to be rounded. It's not enough to just make straight A's in your coursework. That's part of it, but unless you can get along and interact and work with people, you're going to struggle, honestly. And there's a lot of people like that, as you know. And it doesn't matter what the field of study is. We haven't gotten to a point where we can eliminate the need to interact with people. And we don't ever want to get to that point. It's a gift. And I know there's a lot of talk about that because of social media, because of our digital lives. Balance is important. You've got to strike a balance. You've got to make sure that you're not overlooking the need to – it's a basic human need. It's for your health, honestly, to interact with other people face-to-face, in person, not just digitally. And I really like the way Dr. Dale talked about that and the opportunities, in particular at community colleges. And it is true. Some people, they get dropped into a big university environment, and it's a problem for them. They don't thrive. So a little more intimate setting is more suited for them, and it's case by case. It really does depend. But good stuff. Appreciate that. Against the Grain says, what reason high ACT scores students do not choose community colleges? Because one reason, I think you meant to say, because the ACT Score Scholarship lasts for the entire 4 years in a traditional 4-year university. If you use it at a community college, it's only good for 2 years, and then hopefully they can get a transferred scholarship. Okay, I appreciate that explanation and clarification. But it still may not be the best fit for the particular student. Something to think about. Ed and the Delta talking about the school consolidation issue that we had Representative Rob Roberson on earlier discussing. He, of course, is co-chairman along with Representative Dottie Scoggin of the special committee the Speaker created to study potential consolidation of K-12 schools. Ed says in the Delta, the school systems in each county are normally the first or second largest employer. They are jobs programs. There's little interest in cutting spending or consolidation if the money keeps coming. Yeah, that is a problem, and that's a function of lack of industry and lack of economic growth in those areas. And so we're relying on the government literally to provide jobs and sustenance for the population. That's why we got to grow the economy. Coming right back with the final segment in the Element Wealth studio.
Properly set all controls before recording.
All systems go. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. Joey the trucker says, I just like driving the truck. Been driving a truck for years. I put you in a truck my first time. Give me a road. They gave me a road atlas. I think that's what he's saying. Now we have navigation tools. Now we have automatic electronic logs, better riding trucks, better driving trucks, but everybody can't be a truck driver. Appreciate you passing that on, Joey. Absolutely. And my guess is that what you're saying there, I would consider that, again, having to learn new skills. That's great. But you're learning new skills to really improve the quality of your work and just your satisfaction with your work. And that's what it's all about. And that's the point. It even applies to truck driving, and that's a good thing. With things like DEI, this is on the C Spire text line, abolishing standardized tests and things like the walkout at Stanford, an Ivy League degree is perhaps a hindrance these days to many employers. Yeah, it's a good point, and I think some are leery of those who have been indoctrinated with all kinds of craziness that they know often comes with an education at some of these institutions. I will say from a personal experience, I met and dealt with lots of Harvard grads, Harvard B School, though. They think like we do. They're like an outlier in the midst of Harvard. But they have to be quiet about it, kind of. But even the faculty and the professors, the instructors in the B School, they're more on the conservative philosophy bent. And so are all the graduates I met and worked with. They would remind you of the typical conservative person walking around here in the state of Mississippi. But again, they're an exception. They're an outlier to all the other crazy stuff that happens there. So
I'm getting to the point now where I'm no longer thinking they're outliers.
Okay. You think they're just all quiet?
Because, yeah, I think it's just you go back to, what was it, the 70s or 80s where you had the silent majority. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I buy completely into that, but I do buy more and more that the nonsensical, detached from reality ideology of the modern left cannot possibly be sincerely believed by half the population.
And they also have much bigger mouths, and they spend much more of their time running their mouths. Whereas the people in the B school are out in the stacks studying, honestly, to prepare for their
you think
crowd.
about New York State. New York State is not a bastion of conservative ideology.
Right.
But you got the town in Northport, New York, that's got a whole bunch of the Rainbow Coalition upset because for the 250th birthday of the country, they've set up their lampposts and signs and everything across the city with memorials to veterans.
Oh.
And those that paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. Well, that started in May, and it goes through the whole summer. Well, the LGBT whatever crowd got upset because, well, all the space is taken up. They can't put up rainbows.
Oh, my gosh. Well, good for them. That's a perfect way to celebrate our 250th. Who better that we highlight and recognize than those people that paid the ultimate sacrifice, served in America's armed forces? Absolutely. Right there in New York. Not something you would expect to see. I agree. And you're right. I think it's just they get shouted out by the big mouths. Because
the vast majority of the brainless talking heads in mainstream media on every single TV across the country are spewing the same stupidity that the left spews. Because they're in cahoots.
Yeah, it does seem like it. I agree. On the C Spire text line, social media amplifies the extremes of both sides. It does. I think there's truth to that. But there's just some crazy stuff that come from the left in this country that every time you see it, you think that it can't get any crazier, and then all of a sudden it does. And
well, the other problem is the differences in the extremes. The extreme on the right is life was better in 1950. The extreme on the left is you don't agree with me, you must die.
That's true. On the C Spire text line, Mo says, Kevin O'Leary, also known as Mr. Wonderful, said he would not hire woke graduates. I've heard him say that too. Mose, he said he runs every prospect through AI recognition software to identify candidates that have been involved in riots, and he will not hire them either. Good for him. That's within his right, and I respect him and think that's a good idea. Also on the text line, people who work their butt off generally tend to exceed. The left wants to do neither. They would rather take half of yours or more. That's absolutely 100% true. Appreciate all the engagement today. Appreciate you joining us. Back with you again tomorrow. Until then, stay safe and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.